How could my first time going to church be this good? It was a setup. Growing up, God wasn't necessarily spoken about in my family. We weren't allowed to go to church. They had no intentions of living a life with God in their lives at all. It was a coping mechanism by far. Heaven was a place that somebody went to be happy with them dying. God absolutely did not exist in my family, but I always knew that there was something there. I always knew there was a missing piece to the puzzle that I just wasn't being told about. I grew up in Harrisonville. My dad was hopping job to job. My mom held down a job somewhat. My dad was a drug dealer for a little bit from what I remember. I had a very eventful life. Always had a lot of people over, always having the cops over. A lot of people would envy my life as a child because I was able to roam the town or go wherever I wanted to, but I wouldn't wish that on anyone, having no structure in their life like that. I was striving to get out on my own to prove that I can be better than my dad and better than all that. So when I was 20, I met my now wife, Kat, actually at Applebee's. I was serving tables. I had them tight jeans on. But she used to come in a party of 10 to 20 people and quite loud and rowdy. So they had to give them to the server who could deal with them. Well, I made light of it. They were coming in and I got to know them. Then Paul blurted out that Kat wanted my numbers, and that was all history from there. A couple months into our relationship, I was introduced to her family. Right away, they knew that about me, that I didn't go to church or anything like that, and they didn't judge. I seen their faith, and we would go to big get-togethers, Thanksgiving, and it would be 40 people, and we would all line up during prayer and hold hands, and that meant a lot to me. That was completely new to me. I'd never seen that before, and that just felt so wholesome in itself. They have definitely played a big role in my search for God. This was my imaginary dream life, living, for God and going to church on Sunday and taking my kids and believing in God and being happy like that, because I've seen a happiness that you just don't see in everybody else when you see someone who has accepted God. I was driving home from work one day, and I was leaving Jack Stack in Martin City, if you know anything about that, but I was just blasting up Holmes Road up past that park, and something overcame me in that moment that said, dude, slow down. It's covered wildlife on both sides, and a deer walked out in front of my vehicle as I was blasting up that road. So, and I'd hit my brake. I was doing 20 because I was just being extra cautious at that moment. Something came over me, and a deer walked out and stood in my lane. And I was already going, 20 miles an hour, so it was no big deal. I stopped, and it was all good. Another one was my grandpa had died, and it had been a couple years, and I had just very little communication with my grandma, and something came over me and said, dude, you need to go see your grandma. I had been with my wife now for 3 months, and it was time for her to meet my wife, and we went out and I took her out to breakfast, and I'd never done that before because I was 20 years old and had a good job, and I was able to provide those things. And 2 weeks later, she passed away suddenly. I felt so whole knowing that I had seen her 2 weeks before, and she had met my future wife, and it was all signs. Something came over me, and I know that was a sign. So my brother, he was deep and heavy into drugs, and he went to jail for a while, and he found God before I did, and it was just another sign, another point at the way through. My brother had a really rough life like I did, and he turned to meth. I turned to being better than he did, better than my dad was. My Uncle Mike and my brother, they come to me and they try to talk about God, and I just want to question things, and I ask them questions that they can't answer. So I remember telling my wife for the first time, that I was ready to go to church. So I pretty much left it up to her, and she had picked the church out, and she said, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "No, maybe next week." So next week rolls around, and it happens to be my brother's birthday, of course, and so I said, "I'm ready to go." We pull in, and I'm already wanting to leave immediately, before I even get there. There's people waving, and I didn't like it at first. I was just, the only thing I could think of is they want your money. They just want something. But I walk in those doors, and the first person we see is Jill Smith, and I don't know who Jill is, but my wife does, and she hugs her and introduces me and everything like that. We kind of felt at home immediately. We're getting greeted left and right by people that we actually do know, and then Drew comes out, and Drew's just infectious. So we get the kids enrolled and everything like that, and we go back and we sit down, and Barry is talking. This dude changed my life in 30 minutes. Let me tell you what. Barry was talking directly to me. I can't give you all the details, but he was talking about people like me coming to God. So when we get done, we get the kids out, and I don't really say a word until we get to the car. And I look my wife dead in the eye, and I say, "You set me up, didn't you?" And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Don't play this. You set me up. You told these people that it was going to be my first time, and he was talking to me. That guy doesn't know me, but he was looking at me the whole time. You set me up." She said, "No, I didn't set you up." And it might have took a few weeks to realize that wasn't a lie. She didn't set me up. It just doesn't make sense, from the things that I've learned and the things that I've learned in school maybe, and nothing made sense, and I always questioned everything. But the signs were there. Very first chance I could get, I asked Sean, I said, "How can you tell me that Jesus is real from a book?" And he said, "Was Abraham Lincoln real?" And I said, "Absolutely. There's stories about him. There's portraits, pictures of Abraham Lincoln. There's everything that's right here." And he says the same for Jesus Christ. And it was like, wow. I've never been put it straightforward like that. All these signs that led me to real life, and then all around me, these people so close to me in my life, it meant so much to them. Like my brother and my wife and my uncle, it meant so much to them for me to give God a chance. So I tried it out, not only for them, but for myself, because I was ready. It was time. Sean always asked at the end of the service, if anyone wants to let Jesus Christ in their heart right now, just raise your hand. I was weary for the first couple times, I was embarrassed, don't put your hand up right now, everyone's looking. And one day I just did, I was like, what, open up my heart. And I did. And I thought my heart was full. I have a beautiful wife and 2 awesome kids, but you never know that your heart is missing something. And then he came in, and I realized that I had so much room in my heart, and now it's full. And he's always been there, knocking on the door, and just waiting for me to open it. And when you finally do, it's amazing. I feel like I needed God. My family needed God. My marriage needed God. My kids need God. I needed it more than anyone besides him knows how much I need it. If there was one thing I could say to somebody who is questioning faith, is that is God working through you to question that, and to give my church, give Real Life just one Sunday, and I guarantee you'll be back. Just give them one chance. Most of my life, now but 5 months, I'm so glad that I came home to God.